What's up, everybody? It's CrushCast Live with Advertise Crush. I hope it is me. So here's the thing: we're gonna have to go all audio for this episode. Apparently, the internet's being a butt, so it's gonna be an all audio CrushCast. We're going old school, but hey, we're still gonna be up on what? Just listen to the narrative. But of course, with me this week is
I am Honolio.
no, just no.
Damn it, Bobby.
No, just no.
Hi, everybody.
No, it's Ben, everybody, from the No Rights Podcast.
Hi, folks. It's me. I'm Ben. Nice to hear you. I mean, you really see much, so. I'll use my imagination.
Plug your podcast.
The No Rights Podcast. We do a live show every Saturday. It goes up on the blog every Monday. Today's episode was a nice, big, long mess. Because we had a tiebreaker on the final trivia that went for like 4 quizzes. My brother got mad. Good times were had. Tempers flared. Reality show music thumped. Dun 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 dun. Okay, it didn't, but it should.
Oh boy. So.
NoRightsProductions.com.
So. Alright, so everyone has been looking at the title of this week's podcast and going, what's a format war? Well, format war is essentially anytime you have 2 warring parties of the same media style trying to establish dominance. And we're going to actually get into
Sega. Apple and
we're actually going to get
PC.
into that here in a minute. That will be part of it.
Subs or dubs? Wait.
Just no.
Okay.
So the reason why I decided to do a format war episode is for a couple of reasons.
It's cheaper doing a storage war then, right? So.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
But the main reason being is that we're starting to see some of your what most people call classic formats start to make a comeback in the past couple of years. Since I work in an electronics store, I find most people coming in for VHS. I have a lot of people coming in for vinyl needles and things of that nature. And one thing that I noticed was going to be released later on this year, one of my favorite bands, which happens to be a band called Lamb of God, and no, it's not a Christian band, is going to be releasing their new album in July. And the first thing is they're going to be doing, of course, their standard CD release. They're also doing an MP3 release, which is standard as well. But along with that, of course, they're now doing a retro release of vinyl. And then also they're doing a release on cassette. I don't know about you guys, but I have not seen a cassette release in at least 10 to 15 years. At least. So this kind of boggles my mind that we're going to see a cassette release in 2015. So that got me to thinking, we have so much of I actually started to question that, to be honest. That's probably one of the few, musical media formats that hasn't seen a resurgence in the past couple of years. At least not that I can remember. Click, click, click. Oh, are we on that song yet? Nope, not yet. Click, click, click. Damn it. But that was just something that kind of tweaked my interest in how everyone's retro everything at the moment. So it's like, well, why not revisit the format wars of the past and also kind of take a look at the current format wars, whether you believe there is one or not. So,
Betamax shall rise again. HD
No, that's
DVD
good.
for life.
The first one I'm going to take a look at here is,
Laserdisc.
of course, Betamax versus VHS. Now, everyone knows that VHS won out, of course, right? Right?
I suppose. I mean, some places are still using beta, so.
But and that's something that we're going to get into as well. And something that I had seen from a couple different YouTube channels about. For instance, Cinema.
You still there, Doug?
Than the Betamax.
Oh, there you go. You dropped on my end.
Can you hear me now? The wonders of modern technology.
Let's just get two tin cans and talking to one. Hey, how's it going? You get back there? Okay. How about them Packers, man?
But I don't know how much of that you heard. But, the guys over at Cinemassacre on YouTube, which are the people who do the Angry Video Game Nerd, talking about how just as recent as a couple years ago, when you do your final film school projects, you still.
Okay, it dropped again. But yeah, I saw him talk about that. He said that he did projects on Betamax. He did a commercial for a car wash, I believe, and he did a beta tape, so. Yeah.
For Ben to join here. You back?
I didn't go anywhere.
My goodness. But let's talk about how Cinemassacre was having to use Betamax tapes when they were in film school, as recently as a couple years.
Yeah, he did a car wash commercial in Betamax, and he's done a couple other projects in it.
Now, I've actually got some information via the great Wikipedia on Betamax. So,
Oh. Here's hoping it's not full of urban legends, folks. Betamax will make you more attracted to the opposite sex. Who knew? Oh, okay.
Now, Betamax is actually developed by Sony. Released in Japan on May 10th, 1975. Contains half an inch wide videotape in a design similar to quarter inch or 3/4 of an inch U-matic format. The format, of course, is virtually obsolete at war. So I'm not going to really go into like the hardcore stuff on it, on like, you know, the specs and all that. Most people want to be involved in the whole Betamax versus VHS thing are going to do their own comparisons and whatnot of which format was better. And the same goes for all the other formats that we're going to talk about. But in general, most people thought that the Betamax actually had better quality than VHS. So much so that, of course, people still tend to use Betamax today. And that Sony was just really bad at marketing.
Well, I mean, there's
Really
numerous
bad at
reasons. There's marketing, there's the fact that VHS was cheaper, and also because you could get things like pornography on VHS versus Betamax where there weren't that many.
That's actually the sad part about it, is that pornography, XXX, has actually done one format war. How sad is that? Of course, the other one being HD DVD versus Blu-ray. It's one of the deciding factors.
I was only rooting for HD DVD because of the name, because otherwise, I mean, the average person, they're like, well, I got an HD TV, well, obviously I'd want an HD DVD player, and then it's like, well, what Blu-ray? What's that? So, now it just confused people.
Well, I saw people being confused as far as the HD DVD. I was like, well, if it's HD DVD, my DVD player should be able to play it, right?
No, because your DVD player is SD. I mean, that's easy enough for a person to understand, but when you throw in an entirely different name...
Yeah, then they're like, what's SD? Well, no, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But, no, the whole Betamax versus VHS was kind of deep-rooted in, the format's willingness to cross boundaries. I mean, anybody who would have ever thought to even have pornography in the home was suddenly taken aback by VHS.
Well, it's
VHS saw the first real boom in pornography in the United States.
Well, back then, if you wanted to watch a porno, you'd have to go to a slimy theater in a bad part of town, and everybody'd see you, and instead you could get it at home and watch it at your leisure in your boudoir. So, and nowadays you don't even need a VHS tape.
I know, right? Nowadays you just need an iPod with a video camera on it.
Every time you drive past the adult stores, it's like, man, who needs porn? We've got the internet. I mean, back in the day, a good porn section kept a video store alive. Now, yeah. Ever since broadband, baby.
Yes. And that also...
I recall with the Blu-ray, when that came out, they were like, oh, we're not going to be releasing porn on Blu-ray, we're going to just stick to HD DVD, and it's like, well, that could be a nail in the coffin, and it's like, oh, no, wait. Broadband internet, never mind.
I remember that too. Like, there was such an outcry. I'm like, it's just porn. What's your issue?
Do not underestimate the value of porn. It influences people. It's things people want, and if they can get it, they will go to the way they can get it.
Damn right.
You're damn right.
But, even after, VHS had claimed victory, I mean, of course, like we're talking about, Beta still lives. It still freaking lives. It's had actually the longest lifespan of any dead format, I think, in history.
I don't know, man. I mean, you've got Polaroids, you've got, 8mm film. There's lots of things that people are still using. But
nobody really has specifically regarded film as a dead format, as a standard.
Not film, but 8mm. I mean, how many, 18 and 16mm, film. I mean, there's certain kinds of cameras you can't get film for anymore. I mean, when Polaroid quit making it, other people had to come out and produce it. So, film itself isn't a dead format, but certain sizes of it, designed for the home consumer and the lower end. So. You there, Doug?
You back, Ben?
I didn't go anywhere.
I know. Run that down again, Ben.
Well, I mean, film itself, if you want to try and classify all the different sizes, yeah, film itself isn't a dead medium, but the different kinds are. Polaroid film, they quit making that, and other companies had to pick up the demand that people had to supply, and 8mm, 16mm films. It's like, there's obviously still plenty of 32mm films and all kinds of other things going around. But the home consumer, it's like, how many people get their reel-to-reel projector out now? Unless you're really into collecting classic films. Probably not.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's part of it, though, is that you know, as far as just a mass medium, um, no, almost like no format out there that kind of matches. What was that? There's almost no format out there that really kind of matches what Betamax has done. You know, film is an ever evolving style of medium, in my opinion. And of course, now they've kind of hit rock bottom with film not being used anymore for movies, unfortunately. But when you take a look at how the film has progressed, it's ever evolving. I think in the case of Betamax as a format itself for for home use and for commercial use, it's strictly home medium or professional one, and it's still really weird to think that quite possibly out there right now into a store with a Betamax tape saying, I need this converted into into blah blah format because my Betamax player you just got to think about that. But anybody had ever 5 years ago that was still a possibility?
I don't know. I mean, people are, into retro formats. They swear by their particular formats. You get audiophiles who are like, no, man, you gotta get it on vinyl. You gotta, I mean, I'm sure if it was practical to be carrying around, people would be still using reel-to-reel if they could. But it's not, and it's not a very solid format. I mean, film, nitrate film, that was a very dangerous format, too. If it could explode or, burn down an entire studio or storage facility. So, then they had to develop safety film. So,
when you have something like Betamax and you're forced to use it, forced to use Betamax because of your professional status, I mean, that is probably the weirdest case I've ever seen of something along those lines. I mean, every single type of medium that a school uses has evolved. Why homeschool evolved past Betamax?
Well, I mean, it could be a matter of what the school is locked into. I mean, at the time, Betamax was it is definitively of higher quality than VHS, but it lost because it was more expensive. And then once all your machines are Betamax machines, well, if the school you're going to isn't always updating their machines, which, let's be honest, film programs don't always do. I mean, I've used cameras that places that didn't have HD yet. I used FireWire, which FireWire was a faster connection format, but it also kind of went away. So I don't know.
All right, so moving on from Beta, going to move into more of a standard musical genre. This is more of a format, more than it was a format conversion. From 8-track to cassette. And these are one of the ones that kind of tripped me out because everyone was all just sweating 8-track, and the cassette came around and just blew it out the water. When you really stop to think about how much cassette just kind of dominated, I mean, not the CDs didn't even dominate cassettes like cassettes dominated 8-track, at least in my view.
I don't know. I mean, the whole CD thing, every time there's a new format, you get about 10 years of people buying their library again on the new format. And, the thing with cassettes versus 8-track is that cassettes were physically smaller and, probably cheaper to produce given the cartridge size, and a little bit easier to handle moving back and forth between tracks, so I don't know.
Now, 8-track, from the mid-1960s until the late 1970s. And really weird, according to the Wikipedia page, it says the format was relatively unknown outside the U.S., Canada, and Australia. Stereo 8 was created in 1964. Now, what's really messed up in a way is that it seemed to me a lot of people's conversions kind of happened because of their cars. I think that was part of it. Because cars were becoming kind of like your social hub for that time period. I mean, you have so many of the classic cars that came out in like the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. So many different kinds. Things are changing as far as the culture went. I think that really led to the quick, fast, and immediate decline. Partially because I think, of course, the size was number one. Having 8 tracks just stick of your. Have you ever seen an 8-track player inside of a car?
Not in a long time.
What do you remember about that? Someone's adjusting and inside the car they kick the 8-track. Like, oh
Yeah.
crap!
I don't know,
gonna
man.
get the belt when we get home. And of course, if you had a cassette player, you never saw the cassette. Hop right in, all set, ready to go. That like I was saying, that wasn't more of a war than it was a conversion. 8-track was nice, but cassette just dominated. And moving from that, of course, moving from cassettes to the compact disc. Remember when compact disc came out then?
I gotta say the conversion in cars to most cars kept cassette tape players because they were cheap to put in. And when you eventually got a car that had a CD player, it's like, oh, you got a high-end stereo. And then, nowadays people can pull out stereos and put them into cars and everything, but like it wasn't common back in the day to, get a new stereo. It's like you got the one that was in your car,
No adapter kits back in the 80s. I was going to the dealership and saying, oh, I want a cassette player in here now. Well, we're going to need to install a new dash. By the way, how's your insurance? Because if we screw this up, we're not being held liable. Whereas now it's just like you go from an old CD player to a new CD player, going from a cassette player to a CD player.
It's just an interesting divide because for a long time, most cars didn't have a CD player. CD was a very dominant format, but you kept cassettes because that's what you played in your car. And by the time CDs really became prevalent in cars, they were already iPads and iPods and stuff that you're like, well, I want to get my MP3 player routed through either one of those radio things or the auxiliary in jack, and it's like you had to deal with that mess at that point. So.
And the thing about most CD players now is it's got, you can choose, like in my car, I actually have triplicate choice. Because I can go from, my CD player to my aux jack. Or I can just go ahead, just straight up plug in my phone.
Well, I mean, ever since all the digitization of media libraries and everything, it's like I used to have one of those, 3 or 5 disc, things that would also have 2 tape decks and a radio. And after a while, it's like, well, I don't even use that anymore because I've got either everything in my iTunes library, or I can stream it from an internet source, or I can listen to it from somewhere else. So. It's interesting. It's the micronization of stuff, like, how we all have phones now, so there's like 3 or 4 things that we don't have to go looking for. We can have a camera, a phone, a calculator, an internet connection, all in our pocket.
But even that kind of feeds into the more modern format war. And this one isn't more prevalent in as far as society goes. There's a specific niche of users that are like, you know what? I want to have a separate camera. I want to have a separate music player. Um, and it's even started to get to the point where people are not using their smartphones. They'll buy a tablet for specific use of going to a website. They'll have a smartphone just in case, but they will specifically spend out X amount of dollars and say, I want to use this specifically for my home use to get on the internet, or to watch movies or X, Y, Z. And I think that the past couple of years has shown that there's been a little bit of a blowback from consumers as far as, you know what, we want something different than having all at one. CD is starting to slowly make a comeback, which is really weird. Vinyl as a format has made a resurgence. Last year they sold as much vinyl as they did in 1999, and it's a sizable bump. And of course, with cassettes all of a sudden now appearing out of nowhere, it kind of makes you think. I mean, really stay away, or do they just wait to have a resurgence at a later time? There are going to be people that will say, well, the reason why I bought the vinyl is to hear the scratches.
Well, I mean, things like vinyl and cassettes and stuff, older technologies like that, I think they come back more for a novelty and nostalgia feel, because that, nostalgia has about a 15 to 20 year cycle, in that if you were into something in the 80s when you were a kid, once you get to be older, you start to long for something that was younger. So that's when people dig out the old NES games, they dig out the old 80s shows they used to watch, because they remember a simpler time, and it all comes back again later. That's why you have Happy Days reliving 50s during the 1970s and other such things like that. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody's buying vinyl and going, no, this is the way I'm going now in the future. It's like, well, it's kind of more to a novelty and nostalgia trip more than anything else, I think.
Well, you actually see more more of I think one example of that, if for no other than you see newer albums being released on vinyl. Like for instance, Stone Sour just put out their Meanwhile in Burbank cover album exclusively on vinyl with the digital download on Record Store Day. And people ate it up, and people were like, oh, this is awesome,
Well, I mean, like I said, that's more of a novelty and a promotional gimmick, because, you remember in the 90s when comic books were huge for a while, and it's like, oh, we got the chrome and gold foil covers, the hologram, the multi-variants, the Kiss blood printed comic, it's like just stuff that people are like, oh, this crazy thing. It's like, notice they still want the digital download. If it only came out in vinyl, well,
I don't know. I think we kind of underestimate the consumers. I've always said that there's been a problem with all digital for the longest time. I still have a massive CD collection at the moment. I still have a massive DVD collection, and I will never digital only collections scare me to no end because of the ease of loss. All it takes is somebody with a swift keystroke and it's all gone. And then if all your backups go, what do you have?
I don't know. That doesn't jive too well with me, because it's like, I mean, you get things like, if you get a movie online, you get it from, you get a copy of it on Vudu, you get a copy on, if you download something from Amazon or iTunes, you can re-download it as long as they have a record of you having it. So, And eventually everything's gonna be in digital format because it's just easier to be able to get, hey, I want to hear this song, boop boop, there it is, rather than let me dig through 50 CDs and find the one with the track I want, and then oh, it's scratched. It just makes sense to me that we're moving towards digital because it's easier.
I can understand why people would think that, but there's too much for error. So services are already starting to see that error is being exploited. People's accounts get hacked. Complete companies get hacked. Massive data loss happens, and they don't have a backup, or the backup that they had is also destroyed. I've run into people who, when music was first starting to be offered online as a digital download, they were angry because they had hundreds and hundreds, and in a couple cases even thousands of what I read about, and their entire purchase history was wiped out. They spent X amount of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they have absolutely nothing to show for it.
Well, yeah, but that's like saying that you'll never have a scratched CD or a broken CD or a tape that gets 8 in the player. It's like you're gonna have loss with regardless of what format it's in, Doug. I mean, really.
That is true, but there's no way of recouping that when you like this. You buy from, let's say, iTunes. iTunes can't replace your download if they get hacked and their purchase records get wiped. Well,
the likelihood of all their records getting wiped is minuscule. It'd have to be a huge cyber attack to wipe all records. That's it.
All I'm saying is this: ain't nobody gonna cyber attack my CD collection.
No, but your house could catch fire. I mean, let's be realistic, Doug. That's more likely to happen than iTunes getting so hacked you can't ever get your music in. I mean, realistically, on the scale, it's more secure to have a digital copy than a physical copy.
No, because I can make unlimited backups of my physical copies and still have my physical copy to fall back on should my digital copies be.
If your digital copy exists in about 3 places, it's going to exist probably forever. So,
you'd be surprised, my friend. You'd be surprised.
No, I wouldn't be surprised, Doug. I'm saying statistically, as long as you have a copy of yourself, a copy off-site in case your house burns down, and a copy on some cloud service somewhere, it would be very hard to get rid of all of those. Unless somebody is trying to take you down and intentionally destroy them. So, yeah, I'm going to say it's safer to have a digital copy than it is to have a physical copy.
Nope, sorry. Don't believe it. Anyway.
Just because you don't believe in something doesn't mean it's not true, Doug. That's all I'm saying. Look at climate change.
Hack the planet. Anyway, speaking of digital formats, speaking of a format war, do you remember mini disc?
Yeah. Didn't use it. You'd have to convert between sizes and everything, but it was a popular format for a while if you had a mini disc recorder when they were cheap.
And I had one, and it was freaking awesome. And the mini disc was really nice, and it was just way too expensive. Way too expensive.
Are you talking about mini audio disc or mini video disc?
Sony MD mini disc, the standard mini disc. It is actually kind of the bridge between your standard CD player and digital format, because it was kind of like a cassette in that sense, but it was so minuscule. It was like having a little mini floppy disk, and then just popped into the player.
Yeah,
you ever take a look at that? You ever take a look at mini disc?
Mini discs are cute, but there's too many factors involved with converting between. I mean, some readers won't play them. It's just like CDR versus RW versus like some players will just play everything, or region locking.
Well, no.
It's like
mini discs weren't available to be played on CD players at all, because mini disc was kind of like a disc that was in a cartridge. They also call it's a 8-track encoder. 80 minutes standard mini disc up to 45 hours of audio with a 1 gigabyte capacity.
I don't know, because I do recall seeing physical miniature discs that weren't in cartridges. So perhaps I'm confusing.
Those are just micro CDs, like mini CDs.
I don't know. There's so many variations of the disc format. It's like the mini cassettes that you would put in that boombox Transformers chest, and he would be a boombox, and then he would also turn into another.
Man, mini discs were the bomb back in the day. Just like Ben Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms.
Okay, Kevin Smith.
One of the nice things about mini disc was just it gave you the good parts about a CD, but also took away the bad parts about a CD. Even though it was only a 74 or an 80-minute disc, you had protection as far as having it in a cartridge-based format. Not unlike I guess mini disc would be compared to UMD on a PSP.
I don't know, man. I mean, have you ever seen a CED disc? Because they talk about that on Cinemassacre when they were showing some other outdated formats. There was the CED discs where you put the disc in the machine and then it would spit the holder out, but the disc would stay in the machine.
Yeah.
And then they're talking about laser discs and how you'd get like 4 discs and you'd have to flip them like a record.
Oh, my goodness. No, but did you ever have a PSP?
Nope.
Well, let me go ahead. I'll pop the link in the chat real quick just to kind of show you what UMD was. It'll also pop one for the mini disc as well. Just kind of it'll show you. It's a very similar format. Very similar format, which is really interesting that they didn't kind of gravitate towards that. But I'll show you here. Copy link. So there is and there's a link for mini disc. So the Universal Media Disc, in comparison, had a single layer and a dual layer with 900 megabytes for the single layer and 1.8 gigabytes for a dual layer. So it had a bit more size-wise than a mini disc, which is really nice considering that it was video games that they were making.
Yeah, those UMD discs, they remind me of the worm discs that computers used to have in the 80s.
And the nice thing about UMD is what it did movies, music, and games. So I guess you can kind of consider that a spiritual successor to the mini disc, because mini discs went until 2013, and UMD's just got it was sent off the pasture last year in 2014.
Hey, remember jazz discs? How about zip discs? Those were popular. Oh, Omega and your old formats.
Yeah, but zip drives were a little different. Zip drives were more just strictly for data, nothing else.
They were what they were. They were the small bridge in between floppies and CDs. So it's like, I want to hold more than just this little 32 megabytes. Well, let's get you a zip disk. Ooh, look at that.
I remember when we all were just blown away by the fact that a gig was possible. Like 1 gigabyte, we're like,
Man, I remember back when I had a CD Walkman that it would play CDRs, and you could burn, instead of making it, the CDR burn like a disc that would have audio tracks that could only go up to like 99 on most CD players, you could burn just the MP3 file and store like over 100. So it's just file after file after file. Like, this is right before MP3 players dropped and became a thing. It's like, well, I'm not using this thing anymore. Oh well.
But off to a different kind. Speaking of universal media discs, how do you feel about CD versus cartridge gaming?
Cartridges have a certain nostalgia, I think. Like, they were not. I mean, unfortunately, I have to blow into some of them or clean them up. But just CDs have the whole thing of like, well, if you touch the media, you can get the thing scratched and skipped and everything. So it's protected more like a cassette tape. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of wish there were more cartridge-based systems today, because they got to be easier to make when you could just throw in like a flash drive into a cartridge and there it goes. I don't know.
Now, did you know that originally the advent of the PlayStation was brought on by Sony and Nintendo falling out?
Yeah, Sony and Nintendo, they were going to produce a CD-based system, but then they had the falling out because Nintendo decided they were going to do it with Panasonic, was it? And that eventually led to the Philips CDI. And yeah,
they were working to create a CD-ROM for the Super Famicom.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They were going to go with Philips instead of Sony after Sony announced the deal.
Yeah, then they had the Philips CDI for Philips. That was
that was hell. That was hell.
Yeah, just ask the angry video game nerd. Couple Zelda games, Hotel Mario, and The Flowers of Robert Mapplethorpe.
I don't want to think about that time in history. We just need to move along. Let's move along, man. Let's move along. But so many people were just freaking out when Sony came out with the PlayStation and like, oh, cartridges are dead. No more cartridges. And the weird thing is, essentially, they were right, because cartridges, unless you're looking at mobile gaming right now with like the PlayStation Vita and the Nintendo DS, cartridge-based gaming is pretty much dead. That's pretty much all we got left. I'm not even sure you can really call it cartridge-based gaming anymore. It's more like SD card gaming, somewhat, with how the cards are set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember I had a PlayStation 1, and at the time, there wasn't a lot for it, and I didn't buy a lot of games for it. And then eventually I had to talk to my parents, and like, I'm thinking about getting a PlayStation 2 because it'll also play DVDs, and that was the big selling point for everybody. They're like, oh, well, it also plays DVDs. This PlayStation 1 doesn't. I guess we'll upgrade to the PS2, and then, yeah. I mean, there was a whole thing back in the day. Remember demo discs?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean, after growing up in the day where you would rent a video game from the game store, which, I mean, it still happens, but it was a lot more common back in the day with, Nintendo games and whatnot. And when the PlayStation came out and you get the demo discs in a magazine, and they were like, okay, here's a level of Spyro, here's a level of this. You're like, man, these are awesome. I mean, there's no reason for a company to release them nowadays, but it was a nice thing to have back then. It was like having the little previews before the movie when you rent it.
Oh, those were the days. Those were the days.
Well, you are. Wait, Archie Bunker wasn't a redhead. Wait, are you calling me Edith? Oh, Archie.
Oh, Archie.
Stifle yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, meathead.
Oh, I didn't mean it, Ben. Let's try something new. Let's go ahead and live cast while we live cast.
What are you, Q-Tip? Yo, dog, I heard you like live casting, so we put a live cast in your live cast so you can live cast while you live cast.
Well, I'm actually using this brand new app called Periscope. A lot of people are Periscope while we're live casting for a couple of minutes. So.
Okay. Anyway. The cat is not amused.
Meow. Hey,
Let's
I'm a cat. Why don't you
really
chase me?
Giggity.
Alright. But yeah, as far as the that particular format war was concerned, it was just PlayStation versus Nintendo in that way was just really interesting in the fact of you didn't really see companies go to war like that since Sega and Nintendo. It was
Sega!
one of those Sega. No. Just imagine what type of a just what type of a world the gaming world would be without PlayStation putting the boot in everyone's boot, or they can stomp you while they stomp you. Had it not been for the PlayStation, I mean, where would we be as a gaming industry without that really big kick in the pants?
Well, I mean, to be fair, there were CD systems out there, add-ons and what. You had the Sega CD, you had the TurboGrafx CD, you had it as an add-on though. It wasn't a dedicated
but
system.
It was just...
So the PlayStation was really just okay. Forget cartridges. We're going straight to disc now. So I mean, it was going to happen eventually.
But you take a look at how all the Sega editions failed. The TurboGrafx 16 failed. Every single disc-based media at that point, besides, had been an utter failure up until that point. And the PlayStation really opened up the floodgates as to what CD-based gaming could work with.
Well, I mean, each of those had their own failures for different reasons, though. I mean, the Sega CD failed because they were just trying to extend the life of the Sega system, the Saturn. I mean, not Saturn, the Genesis, and
it was all to extend the life of the Genesis.
They were trying to extend life of the Genesis, and then they would release games that you would need to have the Genesis and the Sega CD and the 32X to play them all together, and you had to connect so many cables to things, and then the TurboGrafx just didn't work because nobody had heard of it. It wasn't marketed well in the U.S., and also it was just really expensive, much like the Philips CDI.
Which, by the way, shout out Periscope app. I've already got some people out there. By the way, hit me up on Twitter at Aphrodite's Crush. Feel free to go ahead and click on the link to join up with the live broadcast. All 5 of you awesome people out there, except for Justin Jones. By the way, Xbox sucks.
Haters gonna hate, lovers gonna love.
Well, Justin, Philips CDI may have had a couple Nintendo properties, but that was mainly because of Nintendo's partnership with Philips early days. The CDI was just poorly put together.
Oh, you telling us you don't like plumbers don't wear ties? I mean, they did have the Wing
That
Commander
game,
3.
oh my goodness. Jeez. Just, I don't want to like, I saw that episode of The Angry Video Game Nerd. Ew.
That's probably my favorite.
No,
I love
Justin,
that episode.
No, Justin, PlayStation was not developed by Nintendo. The early days of planning was done by Ken Kutaragi after the Nintendo and Sony partnership ended. It actually ended a day after, we were talking about it earlier, a day after Sony had announced a partnership. And it was just like, Sony was like, fine, screw you, Nintendo, we'll develop our own, and then we'll go ahead and kick major booty. And they did, and they still are, as evidenced by the Wii U getting thrashed by both the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Can you believe that the Wii U has barely shipped 10 million units at this point?
I'd believe it.
Barely.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
more modern. That's more modern.
I'm more interested in finding out what Nintendo's next console's gonna be, because they're gonna roll one out. You know, the Wii U is basically hit like GameCube level of sales. It's like, well, this one's not gonna take off.
Yeah. Horrible. Our generation's big format wars really have come more to gaming. And it's really not more based on the format. It's the programming of the format and quality of the format.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the gaming systems today, you basically have PlayStation and Xbox, and really the only thing that sells those are the games on them, versus, you know, with the Wii U, that's a platform everyone knows because they've got the properties of Mario, Zelda, Metroid, you know, all the different things that people, if you're a Nintendo person, you go buy the latest Nintendo console, so it's not exactly competing in the same vein as, you know, with PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, which...
But that's also no way to compete because, as evidence has shown, the number one, the repetitiveness of the games that you're getting out of Nintendo right is killing that console, because you need third-party support to sell your consoles. You need games other than your exclusives. I mean, Sony would be okay with just, you know, God of War and Killzone and Uncharted, and Xbox would be okay with Gears of War and Halo, but the third party is really where it all comes together. That is what really creates the bait. Consider your console a house. No, Justin, Halo is not the best. When you take but your third party and also your console, whereas, you know, how people develop is really, you know, the other piece of the foundation. You know, that's why the Wii U is getting killed. It's using old school programming on the console, which is a problem. It's actually using the same programming style as both the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and companies are moving away from that. When third-party companies have to choose between what to develop for and what to leave out, and you also take a look at your and you take a look at what the Wii U was coming up with, the Xbox One and the PS4 were coming up with, there's really no comparison.
I don't know. I mean,
It's
Nintendo's Nintendo's angle is like they've really been living in the mobile game market for a long time now, anyway. So, yeah, I
That's
mean,
not
plus,
a good place to be. I mean, now you have Nintendo going, to smartphones. That is bad. Sorry,
ah,
Justin. Third party does not always choose Microsoft. And your presentation may be bigger at E3, but unfortunately, the games go to PlayStation for this generation. I'll put it up there where the third parties really supported both. A little bit more for Xbox, but this generation is going more PS4. It's just the way it is.
I don't think Nintendo putting out mobile games is a bad thing. I mean,
That's a very bad thing. That's a very, very bad thing.
why do you say that, Doug? Because I don't agree with it.
Point of perspective, point of view, especially when you have this company that is. Sorry, Justin. This past month and like 1 month earlier this year have been the only months that Xbox has out. But when you take a look at how Nintendo has poised themselves for the future, they are going in all well. They're going in all gangbusters on mobile, and mobile gaming is, to be quite honest, and this is I'm gonna have a lot of detractors. I'm gonna hear about this on Twitter, but most mobile gaming is trash gaming. You have freemiums, you have day one DLC, and that's bleeding into hardcore gaming, unfortunately. And you have all of these games that have no quality whatsoever. A lot of those that are made off the Nintendo platform. It's going to hurt the brand as a whole.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with that, Doug, because you're telling me that Nintendo is going to let their properties finally go out to mobile developers after holding it to their own hardware for so long, and they're going to just let the quality go to crap? Come on now. You think they're going to let that go to crap? I do not see that. I don't see that.
Take a look at the past couple of big Nintendo Wii U titles that have come out, like a Nintendo Land, straight booty. And probably the only game that's kept up its original quality is, the last Mario 3D Land game was just, you're gonna have your hardcore people buy it, and it may sell buckets, but the only thing that's going to happen with Nintendo going mobile is it's going to be just like the Wii. Remember how the Wii went? The Wii went from being, oh my god, it's so awesome, it's innovative gaming, to 2 years later being the butt of every joke in every game store in America and across the world. The jig was up.
No, I don't know anybody that thought the Wii was all that innovative, Doug. They just thought it was fun. They knew that it was underpowered compared to a PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. That was the joke at the time. Oh, the PlayStation 3 has Blu-ray. This is clearly more superior. Yeah, but people had fun playing Mario Kart and Wii Bowling. It just sold on that.
But as far as the jig being up on the Wii, everyone's like, oh yeah, the Wii's fun, I can play Wii Sports. But when you also have, along with your Wii Sports, you have, any and all third-party support that came on the Wii was shovelware. It was shovelware. Like, I'm talking stuff that would fill a landfill way before E.T. on the Atari 2600 would ever meet the landfill. For every really good game that you got, like, say, Legend of Zelda, you got about 6 or 7 to 10 to 15 titles that were just like, oh, we can do some motion controls, and the game was completely broken. And it scammed people out of their money God knows how many times over. It's
like the Xbox didn't have that with the Kinect, and the PlayStation didn't have that with the Move.
The Kinect was booty, and to be fair, the PlayStation Eye was booty too. The PlayStation
was booty. So then that all levels out to be, that doesn't level out to Nintendo screwed up and now they're a joke. I'm not getting that, Doug. I mean, if
When
the
you
other
take a look
companies
at
are trying to emulate what Nintendo was doing,
it's all for, the Wii was pulling off flash sales. There were other components still in still in development at the other companies. They just rushed them out to market. It just so happened that the Kinect was a way worse thing than the Nintendo Wii, and Nintendo was just like, yeah, we'll support it a little bit. It's a test run. Now you take a look at the PlayStation camera on the PS4. It completely, the new Kinect is not really good. New Kinect sucks. Take a look at Angry Joe's channel. You take a look at the Dragon Ball Z game review on Angry Joe's channel. Look up Angry Joe. You look up the Dragon Ball Z Kinect, and you see for yourself that the Kinect is absolute beauty. To be completely honest, nobody expected the PlayStation camera to be as popular as it was. Mainly because everyone was looking at every other motion control and just thought it was beauty, which is basically the truth. The original PlayStation I sucked. The original Kinect sucked. The Wii as a standard sucked. You take a look at anything else in the motion control game, it sucked. The PlayStation camera came out, and all of a sudden, boom, it hit the market, and then all of a sudden, everybody wants it, and people use it for their Twitch streams and all this other fun stuff with it. And the Kinect 2 has gotten to that point now. It's starting to get to the point of where its place is in the Xbox pantheon. It has no place as a video game, utensil. It has more of its use in live streaming, which is where it's supposed to be. It's Justin. It's better than it was. I wouldn't say it's there. The Kinect now has a better place on the Xbox, but it's all flash sales. The Wii got its flash sales way more popular, to its own credit, because it was first. But then people realized that it wasn't real gaming. People realized that, I don't want to play Wii Sports when I'm by myself, which is when most gamers are playing by themselves, sitting on the couch.
Well, see, Doug, I think the problem here is that you're trying to compare the Wii and the PlayStation and Xbox markets, and by saying you're saying that you're talking about the hardcore gamer segment, the people that are the Call of Duties, those people that consider themselves hardcore gamers, and the Wii, it really picked up the casual market. You had senior citizens playing it, and nursing homes picking up the Wii. You had school children in schools doing it for workouts and exercise. That's a vastly different number of people who are getting into gaming than the people that are like hardcore, like get every Madden that comes out, And with mobile gaming, that's crossing into the more casual. Everybody that has a smartphone can now get a hold of a Nintendo game. So I don't see that as a bad thing for Nintendo. I see that as a calculated move to try and move into a market. They say, because right now you have the Android market, and you have the iOS market, and they're glutted with a lot of crap. And you also got to think of it like this, okay? Yes, it's gonna make them a buttload of money in the interim. But what happened to Nintendo after the jig was up with the Wii? The profits just dived. I'm talking nosedived. The year before the most recent, I think the 3DS came out, and the 3DS was still having to gain ground. That year, the Nintendo's profits were lower than its initial profit year before the Nintendo Entertainment System came out. That's bad. Nintendo cannot afford another nosedive like that. And right now, the only thing that's keeping it afloat is the DS unit. The DS unit, as a standard, is keeping that modicum of Nintendo gamers alive. That's keeping that company afloat. You can't afford to screw up again. And they're potentially going to screw up not once but twice by letting, number one, these mobile games are not directly Nintendo funded and developed. It's a third-party publisher that works in mobile games that's taking it up.
I would feel a little bit differently if it was Nintendo's own in-house developers working on it.
But you were just going on about how you were tired of the. You were just going on about how you want third-party and non-Nintendo built games, and now you're saying, well, for the mobile games, I want Nintendo to learn the ropes and maybe throw out some really crappy games, because Nintendo doesn't know about making mobile games. They know about making system games for their system.
But when you take a look at how the mobile gaming goes and how bad those games are, you have to do it in-house and come out with like a test game to kind of earn your spurs. Because right now the mobile game market is so saturated, they are jumping into a kiddie pool that is populated by every single big fat dude on the block. That's like, acting like a big fish that's jumping into a small pond from a large, huge-ass pool. And that is a problem. If this would be a little bit different. I can understand them going through a third party if they had gotten into the mobile gaming market a couple years ago when everyone was saying it was smart to do so. And they could actually really make a head-first splash. Now you're running into a situation where it could be very bad for your company, especially if the NX console tanks. Because right now, you have 2 crappy consoles in a row, and people are going to be extremely leery to stay with your company. Extremely leery. You put out one crap piece of trash console, you put out another console that was not complete trash. It had its good points, but it also, once again, relied on a gimmick to sell. And now you're walking into a X amount of dollars out of people.
I'm just going to say right now, Doug, Nintendo is not Sega. They haven't burned their bridges.
It can very easily be Sega. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo can all be the next Sega. It's all about Sony realized where they had to be to take the forefront of this generation, and they've done it with indie gamers and excellent use of the console, and not doing what Microsoft did.
The reason Sony has had the lead over Microsoft this time around is because Microsoft shot themselves in the foot with their big announcements, and they were rolling out all these things that people didn't want, and then PlayStation just rolled out and said, yeah, we're not doing all that stuff, you can still get used games, we're going to have this and that, and it's cheaper, there's a lot of things, and Microsoft just shot themselves in the foot and had to roll back all kinds of statements for when that thing came out. So it's not surprising. I mean, look at the last cycle. PlayStation was in the same boat as Microsoft was with the PlayStation 3. There was all kinds of clunkiness, and everybody just had an Xbox. And now it's rolling around.
Now, when you take a look at as far as how the formats are going right now with this generation, I think that Microsoft is going to be on even keel with Sony eventually. I think it's going to happen. They definitely are going to have just as good games as Sony will. They're not right now, Justin. I'm sorry. There are way too many factors that can play into that can screw up the entire process. No, they end up botching the new Halo release. That's going to hurt. They end up botching anything else that's going to supposedly be a heavy release. And that goes for both sides. Right now it's not a good time to be a gamer if you want AAA titles. There's some bad AAA titles out there right now. The most recent Assassin's Creed that came out last year was a total tanker. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but that's something that Nintendo has to really be careful of. They have to work that money in-house to make really good games. Oh, that's what I'm saying, Justin. Is that the last Assassin's Creed was bad for both systems? No, it was just bad, extremely bad programming. I don't know who programmed that game or why they programmed that game, but that is just approaching, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 levels of bad programming.
Well, Ubisoft they've faltered a lot with that. There's Watch Dogs that came out. It's not been a good cycle so far for them.
But Nintendo has to avoid that. They have to avoid pitfalling how their games are set up and how they're played. They need to go back to a classic way of playing their games and not having either a motion control or a spoony touchscreen that's $200. That's something else that really Pitfall was a fun game. Go ahead and do that cheat code for me, will you? But when you take a look back and you see where Nintendo has made their missteps, Nintendo could easily be in the lead right now with this generation if they did not make one huge misstep, and that is the gamepad for the Wii U. That is a $200 piece of equipment that turns the Wii U from a $200 console into a $300 console easily. Well, honestly, Justin, the backwards compatibility is an issue because even though it plays Wii titles, they don't know how to sell that to the public. They can't market the Wii U out of a paper bag, which is really weird considering Nintendo has been one of the most well-publicized companies in the last 20 years for gaming. I don't know why people in that company can't get the message. They wanted a standard console that played games well and had good games made for it, and they got sandbagged. The Wii U is a sandbag on that company. And that's unfortunate. That's just unfortunate. We are literally possibly 2 to 3 years away from seeing Pokemon on Xbox and Sony. And that is a very real possibility. A very real possibility.
Yeah, I never cared about Pokemon. Never gave a damn.
But you gotta think about it, though. You seriously gotta think about it. Pokemon has been one of the most significant titles, the most significant IPs for Nintendo ever. I'm talking Nintendo. Nintendo has bled Pokemon so well, and made so many games based off of that IP, and done so much with it. Nintendo right now, Pokemon is more recognizable to Nintendo than Mario, and that was not easy to do.
That's just an age thing. I mean, young kids, of course, they're gonna know more Pokemon because there's so many more Pokemon games than there are new Mario games. I mean, you ask any kid under the age of 13 to name a Nintendo property, he's probably going to say Pikachu or something like that. But you ask anybody our age or in their 20s, they're gonna identify Mario.
Hey Justin, the only reason Xbox One has been selling more is because of the price drop, which Microsoft botched that too, by the way. But as far as Nintendo goes, even with the generational thing, and this is something I've never really understood too. The layout of those games is almost exactly the same. But I guess I shouldn't say that because you take a look at sports titles, except for graphical upgrades. The only thing you get with Pokemon instead of a graphical upgrade every year is you get different characters.
Well, Doug, I mean, think about Candy Crush for a second. Think about Peggle. Are the different games really that different? No, but it's the new one. And that's what the people that are buying the games care about. And as long as they like it enough to keep buying, that's really all that matters.
I honestly think Nintendo has a very real possibility of being the next Sega within the next 5 years if they don't up their game on their format. That is a certainty if they do not step it up.
I don't know, Doug. I think it's just the view you take of Nintendo and wanting to really compare them to Xbox and PlayStation. It's like that's more like comparing, Mac and Windows, because Apple they're not competing on the same on the same floor, because they're big on the MP3 player and the iPod market and stuff like that, and Nintendo is more in the handheld. I mean, handheld, in the US it's all about the, people are all about the consoles, and yet the leading handhelds are either, phone games or Nintendo DS's, and in Japan it's huge. So, I don't know. Kitty, you're attacking me. Stop it. Kitty has opinions about the Nintendo situation.
Everyone says that Nintendo doesn't compete with Microsoft and Sony, and the numbers show something very different. They're still gaming companies. They may not appeal to the same demographic, but when you take a look at what Microsoft and Sony have been trying to do the past couple of years in more catering to the child market and releasing HD and going from more of an old school retro gamer perspective, they're going for the same people, Nintendo likes to think they're in this bubble, and they're really not. If someone says, "Oh, I can go old school and buy a Wii U and be able to play my Wii games," or I can be able to play, Call of Duty with my friends, which way you think they're going to go?
If you have a Wii U, are you considering the Wii old school, Doug? I mean, think about when the Wii came out. They had their virtual consoles, and I got a lot of Super Nintendo and Nintendo Entertainment System games on that. So
you can still get a virtual console on the Wii U. That's one of the big things that keeps it afloat. You can buy old school games and download Super Mario Brothers onto your Wii U. But
we're not talking about Sega Saturn, okay? Jeez. She's like, talk about the Sega Saturn, Daddy. Talk about the Dreamcast, and like.
And that's it. When you take a look at what Nintendo's been trying to do the past couple consoles, it kind of does remind you of what they're trying to do with the Genesis. They're trying to bleed the old along. It's like,
Yeah, because when the Xbox puts out a remastered edition of the Halo collection, or when they put out Mass Effect remastered collection, or when they put out,
that doesn't. But when you take a look at those companies and what they're doing, it's an aside. It's a game collection that adds to the standard library. When you take a look at Nintendo releasing another Super Mario game that has no innovation, or always touting that you can buy your old games. You can buy your old games. Everyone knows you can buy your old Xbox and your old PlayStation games on a PlayStation Network and Xbox Live, but that is not the primary. That's not the primary purpose. Most people are like, well, I can still play my old school games on my Wii U using my virtual console. That shouldn't be a feature that you're trying to tout as a high-class feature. That's everybody. Everybody can do that.
I don't see them touting it like that, Doug. I really don't. I mean, I'm not going to say that there are a lot of games on the Wii U that I care to play, because there aren't. But really, of the current generation of games, of all three consoles, I haven't seen anything worth getting a new generation machine for. I mostly play games on my computer anymore. So, arguably,
Okay,
Uh.
Mr. PC Master Race, back it down.
Well, first off, Doug, remember I'm on a Mac, so don't start with that. Fun times.
Yeah, PC Master Race. Don't give me that crap. Don't give me that crap.
Whatever, Doug. At least I'm not talking about Linux kernels.
At least we're not talking about fonts.
Not this week. Maybe next time. Maybe I'll come back and talk all about kerning. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, that would not be great.
But you see, with ligatures, right, you got your A senders, you got your
No.
B senders, and...
No.
Oh, come on.
But one last little bit of format war that we're going to go ahead and go over is something that most people haven't thought about. You have a good
Atari
night,
versus ColecoVision. Which is the answer?
No. When it comes to format wars, there is one war that is still yet to be fought. And this is really going to get people pissed off. And here's why. Current format of MP3s and versus, the more advent of, combo copies, which is, of course, straight up buying your Blu-ray that comes in digital copy or buying a CD that comes in digital copy. Most people will say that they're off to just buy a digital copy and be done with it. I'm like, well, we kind of already discussed this a little bit earlier on, but what happens if your digital copy or your digital copy just goes? I'm always keeping a hard copy on tap just in case. And some people would honestly say too, it's always nice to have a physical copy should you not be around to access your digital copy. Let's say if you're in the car and you forgot your iPod, in some of 40% of houses in the United States, bring your physical copy along and go. How do you feel about having a combo copy as opposed to a strictly digital copy?
Well, it's going to cost more, obviously. So, but if you're buying a copy of it and you're buying it in a physical location, it makes sense. But if if it's a negligible price difference, it makes sense. I mean, if you're buying a Blu-ray copy of it, you can get a package that'll come with the digital download as well as the DVD, so that way you can loan it out to somebody, But I mean, personally, like I said before, it's a matter of convenience, and that physical copies, it's like if you forget your iPod, yeah, you're not going to be able to listen to your song, but it's like, are you going to tote around your entire CD collection with you too? So, I don't know. It's kind of a moot point, really.
I like actually figuring out some of the ones that I have. I love picking a couple of favorite CDs to take with me on a drive. I still do that to this day. A lot of people do. Instead of having to click wheel through 47 albums looking for I want to listen to Zoot Riot.
It's really not that hard to get access to songs when you can just go straight from the A to the B with the swipe of a finger. It's not like the old iPods where you had to circle around and around like a rotary phone. With the touchscreen, you can just go straight to A, straight to this. Okay, go. It's a lot faster than digging out a disc.
I don't know. It just depends on how you're driving. If you're like me, I'll switch out the CDs at the stoplight. Switch it out, good, ready to go.
Yeah, I keep like 3 CDs in my car because I don't really think to sit and go through that. That's not really where I consume my music. I tend to listen to music while I'm working or when I'm relaxing afterwards. Driving in the car, I don't know. I usually try and go through the radio to see if there's anything worth listening to, but there usually isn't anymore.
How do you feel about
what was that? You dropped. Douglas?
Yeah, with over-the-air radio versus satellite radio?
Well, I mean, the multitude of dedicated stations and everything with satellite radio, and then you can have, you know, people like Howard Stern going to it and certain broadcasters, and the fact that they'd be free to say things that they wouldn't be able to say over the regular airwaves. But then again, there's the whole subscription issue. So, I don't know. I mean, an XM subscription is, like, if there's stuff you really wanted to listen to on XM, I think it would be worth it to pay for a subscription as opposed to going through all the terrestrial stations and going, well, nothing here, nothing here, nothing here, and I'm turning it off.
Because there's a ton of us out there. I mean, there's millions that will, like, I was paying like $25 a month. Now I'm down to paying $13. I couldn't afford it anymore. But I mean, it's the multitude of channels available through that, and it's kind of bled over to some of the people I know because they're like, "Dude, how can I listen to that?" It's like, "Oh, it's Sirius XM," and they're like, "Oh man, how much is that a month?" Well, no, you got to buy the unit, or in my case, it's built into my car. So they give you a couple free months, and they kind of like go from there. But
it's kind of the same with cable.
I mean, most lifetime.
I mean, most people, when it comes to like things like that and cable, it's like, well, I really don't want to pay for all this stuff that's shoveled in that I don't really want. It's like I'd much rather just pay for the one or two things I use, and I would gladly be, pay a nice fee, but I don't want to have to keep the rest of this network alive by paying for it. So I don't know. Technology.
It's a wonderful thing.
Well, terrestrial radio now, it's a thing like the same with pop music.
I do believe that about kind of concludes the format war discussion. I think we covered most of everything that's kind of been prevalent over the past, maybe 15, 20, 30 years. I think maybe the only one we didn't cover was actually Blu-ray versus HD DVD. That was real fun, let me tell you. Which one's better? Blu-ray, HD DVD, Blu-ray, HD DVD, HD DVD. Which side were you on at first?
I told you, I was going just strictly for the naming convention. I mean, Blu-ray was better quality and had more storage space, but I really wanted the naming convention because otherwise people were getting really confused when, okay, I got HD TV, what do I do with the Blu-ray player? What does that do? That's not... Couldn't they call it, like, HD Blu-ray or something so people would at least get the idea with naming conventions? It's just, come on, people.
Well...
This isn't that hard.
Blu-ray versus HD DVD is that HD an offshoot of what Blu-ray originally was. Sony actually headers behind it, and Toshiba, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, was a company that was just so adamant about their involvement in Blu-ray, and Sony was like, well, we already have this standard come up with. It's pretty much set, and it's already starting to kind of bleed out as far as the commercial viability. One of the fantastic things about, of course, this quality, and also the difference in how the discs were burned versus HD DVD. HD DVD, when it was created as that offshoot and eventually had its own coalition, had a couple of really big time backers, and then the old standard pornography came in and basically decided the war. Because after porn came through, then all of a sudden Disney got on board with Blu-ray, which is really weird.
Disney and porno, Rule 34. Do 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 do
Weird. And then I think it was Paramount was one of the next big ones that ended up kind of like shit. That was pretty much it. But I was Blu-ray all the way from simply because I was reading in different like computer world, PC world, and whatnot. Right, I was like, "This is awesome! It's only $600 for a Blu-ray drive." I was so stoked. I read about Blu-ray and I was like, "Dude!" I was talking to my friend Robert, and I was like, "Man, 50 gigabytes." He's like, "What?" Yeah, a regular DVD can only hold like 4 gigabytes of space. This thing, he was like, "What?" Oh, the things that made us geek out. Just a few
Yeah, I was debating back in the day getting a Blu-ray drive for my computer, and it's like, you know, I waited to get a Blu-ray player for a while, waiting until the dust settled on the war, and nowadays it's like I don't see really much. I mean, there's not even really much point to for most of the day to have a CD drive at all, much less a CD burner. I mean, you know.
It depends on your perspective, I guess. You know, I'm still a big physical copy kind of guy.
Yeah, that's you run out of space after a while. It just I'm done. I'm cool. I don't need. Do not want. I just want my stuff. I don't need the baggage it comes in.
All right, so I think that's actually going to go ahead. I want to thank Ben. Plug.
Well,
Everybody go into the No Rights Podcast at NoRightsProductions.com.
NoRightsProductions.com, and come see us on Saturdays at NoRightsProductions.com/live, and of course we'll put the show up on Monday. See you there.
Everybody, I want to thank everybody out there for watching. Want to thank everybody out there for Periscope. Thank everybody out there for watching on Periscope. We'll check you guys out on Twitter in the future. Periscope is definitely going to be one of those apps that we're going to definitely a little bit more of in the future. So, also check me out on Twitter, Aphrodite's Crush, Vine, Aphrodite's Crush as well, and also Snapchat. Guess what your username is, Ben?
I don't know. What could it possibly be, Doug?
Aphrodite's Crush. Woo! And
what are you on Tinder?
Of course, check out the YouTube page. You can actually go to that old videos. Well, guys, check all you out next time. Peace.
Peace out.